Stingers. One of the most important items to have as an endgame player in Bee Swarm Simulator. There is currently however a big problem with this specific item and it is actively getting worse. So I think it is time for a slight overhaul. Thank you to Mr. Sir for this video idea and wanting to point out the problem which has been seen by over 200,000 people at this point. You can watch this video by clicking on the first link in the description. The only decent, not overpaid and somewhat reliable method of being able to obtain stingers is by killing rough vicious bees. The stinger grind starts at the beginner phase of the game already, since you need to save up 250 stingers to obtain your own vicious bee, which can do a lot of attack on bosses. Not much later, you probably will have to buy the guards in the Ace shop, which in total will require another 200 stingers, and then eventually you also have to buy the demon mask for another 500. However, if you plan to become a white, red or attack hive, the stinger grind does not stop here. If you want to do boosts, well, you are stuck with Star Saw, meaning you lose 4 stingers every single minute. You also have to use stingers during stick bug runs, which I personally already rarely do because I want to use mine wisely. It is the exact same for the Retro Farm challenge as well as the Robo challenge, which includes maxing out your digital bee. And man, you need to use thousands of stingers for that. Now the problem is that rough vicious bees can give between 1 and 15 stingers each, and every day you can get another 5 extra stingers for defeating your first vicious bee as a daily bonus. This however is for endgame players obviously not a whole lot if you remember what I just said 10 seconds ago. This only was realized in 2020 when the first ever stinger help server on Discord became a thing. I will however come back to the Discord server later in the video. Now at some point this thing called Vic hopping started to be shared across the community. Vic hopping means that you keep joining different servers until you find one where it is nighttime, and then in that server you try to find the vicious bee and defeat it if there is one. Then you just repeat the same process as many times as you need to, and this for some time was the way to get stingers. Eventually Natro macro got released, which for a while was the most well-known macro for the game. I am however not sure if this was before or after Vic hopping became a popular thing. Anyway, people started to use this macro overnight, which wasn't hurting the game in any way since the macro would simply check for potential vicious bee in your own server. Now this feature has been broken for some time already, meaning it is no longer a good method for stinger grinding. Other and new macros have their own issues as well. I present to you Revolution macro. This macro can Vic hop for you, meaning you don't need to do all that annoying grinding anymore at all. Well, only for less and less stingers over time actually, because the more people using Revolution macro, the less vicious bees will be found for every individual player, or well, computer. I myself have not been a fan of this Revolution macro feature, but I do understand why people use it. Grinding stingers is a very tedious process, and I can imagine that it feels like a waste of time. Some of us might even prefer studying over Vic hopping. Now I am going back to the Discord server I was talking about earlier. The first ever vicious bee help server was called Fast Stingers, and it grew to hundreds of endgame players in a few months time. So clearly back then there already was interest and demand. This stinger server's main purpose was that players help each other by finding vicious bees in their own in-game servers and notify other members from the Discord server whenever they found one, so that they could join and share the vicious bees together, allowing to farm lots of stingers in quite a short amount of time. This led to having a so-called vicious ping nearly every minute. However, Fast Stingers was not really the best server professionalism wise, so a similar server was made by some of the retired staff members in 2021, Speedrun Stingers. This server still exists to this day, and I am proud to say that I have been an admin there since day one. Is that also why I pointed out this Discord server section in this video? Anyway, the invite link for this server can be found in the description of the video. We currently also have a ping event going on, and the top 3 members can win an offline voucher, Robux or Discord Nitro. Please though, make use of the channel README to understand how to gain full access to the server, and also please read the Vic ping instructions, because we don't want to Vic mute 50,000 members for camping. Now, only a few days ago, potentially because of Mr. Sir's video, another Stinger server was made. This one, however, is not really following the Roblox TOS. To gain access to the channels where the vic pings happen, you need to trade in-game star signs to the server owner or pay real life money. The owner, Ben, doesn't seem to be a scammer, but he does take advantage of the Stinger shortage by allowing cross-trading to happen, which simply is not allowed. I also want to mention that this ping system is fully automated, done with certain exploits. And hey look, I genuinely don't even blame you if you decide to buy a few days of access to these vic pings, because being able to farm up to 1500 stingers in one day for $4 is really no money at all if you look at it value wise. I did actually server boost the server so that I could get access as well, because for the first day this was kind of just a test for server boosters. I did this because I kind of just wanted to expose how this all worked, because it is obviously, as said earlier, not allowed. Now in the end I never had to do this because the server owner made a video about it himself already. There is also this thing called Stinger services. You can compare it to the server I just mentioned, since you would have to give stuff in return for stingers. However, in this case you let other people do the grinding for you. So you can imagine that giving people money for them to access your account and macro for stingers on it is a really big risk. Not to mention you are basically locked out of your entire Roblox account for the time being. I mean, sure, at least you can now log in by studying, touching grass for once, or you can also just doom scroll for hours on end. It, however, should not be normal for other people and computers to grind for you to play the game properly. So, how to solve this big stinger problem? Well, Mr. Sir brought up a few suggestions in his video, some of which I think are great, like being able to get stingers from getting to a certain round of the Robo challenge. This is probably hard to implement correctly though, since you don't want people to get hundreds of stingers in an hour time. Perhaps completing round 10 can give you 5 stingers, another 8 when completing round 15, and an additional 20 when completing round 20? Or the Retro Swarm challenge, how about being able to gain a few stingers every 3 rounds when being above round 8. Being able to get stingers from stick nymphs would also be an option. Now the downside is that all of these options involve active gameplay, which, as being brought up earlier, is not really what many players want anymore, and the game has also been built around macroing for some time now. You would probably also have to set a low daily limit, so these won't really solve the problem that well. So a simple solution: buff the stingers that you can get from defeating vicious bees. Double the stingers you can get, for example, so that it gives you 2 stingers from a level 1 vicious bee and 30 from a gifted level 12, which is a lot, but it is super rare anyway. Perhaps even make it so that you have a 10% chance that you get 3 times the amount of stingers from defeating a vicious bee. The game is full of RNG related things already, and I personally don't think it hurts to have another one, but rather with a really nice positive outcome. Or hey, another quick idea: what if your own vicious bee can also drop a stinger every few minutes? Look, on it, I and everyone knows that this is a super grindy game, and hey, we are still here, so clearly we do enjoy the countless moments of needing to suffer. However, people have only needing to use more and more stingers every year, while the amount of stingers we can obtain for fair price/time is simply stuck in 2018. I should also mention that the Night Bell still doesn't summon vicious bees in the Pepper Patch, while the 35 bee zone update was released nearly 6.5 years ago. Mr. Sir also made a stinger petition which you can sign if you want on it to rework the ways on how to obtain stingers. And well, thousands of players have signed it so far. The petition plus all of its responses can be found in the description. Now, I want to end the video by showing this. The in-game chat. On it, for me as a visually impaired person, the chat colors genuinely suck. These contrasts make zero sense. White text on a light blue background, red text on black, black on yellow, black on purple, white on brown. It is incredibly hard for me to read all these notifications now. And let me tell you this, it is also the case for non-visually impaired players. And yes, there actually is a way to avert the chat to the old yellow text one It is one line of code. I know you did not make it impossible for certain players to read on purpose, but I think it is quite unfortunate that you left the chat as it is while saying you were still going to adjust it. Trust me when saying that I prefer having a better chat system over the backpacks and sprinklers we were promised to get over 5 years ago. And yeah, that is my rant. Any questions, leave them in the comment section. Also give the video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel for more Bee Swarm Simulator videos. If you have any suggestions yourself to potentially solve this stinger problem, leave them in the comments please.